could you talk a little bit about culture in general for entrepreneurs and building their companies?
I've learned a lot in regards to not only articulating what that culture is, not only with the team and the community, because our members are part of the family as well. And culture isn't just put some core values on the wall and call it a day. It has to be infused into absolutely everything that you do. And so we've worked hard to create that culture to the best that we can and make sure that that's being articulated in every way possible, but also being flexible to your point. I mean, I work very hard on a daily basis to listen and ask for feedback.
You're listening to The Pivotal Leader, where modern leaders talk about the moments that shifted their organizational cultures and pivoted their teams to success. Welcome to the Pivotal Leader Podcast. I'm Gina Trimarco, Chief Results Officer of Pivot 10 Results, a strategy and training company that helps businesses shift from people problems to performance results. Each week on the Pivotal Leader, I interview inspirational leaders who know how to positively impact their customers, employees, and brand through culture building. But before we jump in, here's a pivotal fact. Your survive versus thrive ability hinges on your investment in your employees and your customers. If you don't provide meaningful, purposeful training and growth opportunities for your employees and results for your customers, well, they just might leave you and head straight for your competition. If you're looking for fresh ways to keep your stakeholders engaged, shoot me an email at gina@pivot10.com or visit our website at pivot10.com. In this episode of The Pivotal Leader, I interviewed Felena Hanson, a longtime entrepreneur and marketing maven. Her latest venture, Hera Hub, is a spa-inspired shared workspace and business accelerator for female entrepreneurs. This as-needed flexible work and meeting space provides a productive environment for growing businesses. Hera Hub members have access to a professional space to meet with clients and to connect and collaborate with like-minded business owners, thus giving them the support they need to be prosperous. She has 3 company-owned locations in San Diego and licensed locations in Phoenix, Washington, D.C., and Sweden, with more cities launching soon. She's on a mission to support over 20,000 women in the launch and growth of their businesses by 2020. Felena and Hera Hub have been featured in Inc. magazine, the BBC News, Forbes, and the New York Times. She's a published author and international speaker. Her book, Flight Club, Rebel, Reinvent, and Thrive, How to Launch Your Dream Business, is available on Amazon. So let's dive into this episode, listen and learn from Felena Hanson. Felena, welcome to the Pivotal Leader Podcast today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. And I'd like to start by saying that when you reached out to me, I was really intrigued by your spin on co-working spaces. That was the first thing that really got my attention. And as a female entrepreneur, you had me at the words spa-like.
I'm glad to hear that.
Just so you know that's what jumped out to me. So could you tell our listeners a little more about Hera Hub and what inspired you to create it?
Sure. Yeah, so Hera Hub is a co-working space and business accelerator for female entrepreneurs, designed by women for women, if you will. And we do use the phrase a spa-inspired workspace. So when we define what co-working is, a co-working space, in case somebody hasn't heard that phrase, although it's become quite popular with the growth of the technology segment, is a shared workspace and meeting space for folks that work primarily for themselves. So that's entrepreneurs, freelancers, consultants, are the majority of our members. And they come to work out of the space not only for a productive space to work, but also for a strong sense of community support and resources, because as I'm sure you know, Gina, it is challenging to launch and grow a business, and doing it by yourself is just not the way to go, frankly. You need to find support and community. So that's what Hera Hub is. And the spa-inspired piece is really about the atmosphere. We don't do we don't have massage tables when you walked in, but we do have, running water and aromatherapy candles and soft music and nice lighting and, a place that is, as our members say, both Zen-like and exhilarating at the same time.
The massages would be great, but I can live without them. So
We do chair massage about every other week and one
cool.
afternoon of the week. So we bring in a few of the elements, but
okay.
Yeah, that's why we say spa inspired.
Yeah. And have you had any kind of pushback? I run a women's business group and I got a little pushback in the beginning of like, why can't men be part of this? Do you run into that at all?
Well, men can be part of it. So
okay.
it's female focused, but certainly not exclusive to women. And we do have a handful of male members in each of our locations. What I like to say is if a gentleman likes running water and candles and soft music and nice lighting in a safe, supportive setting, then they're welcome to join.
That's awesome. And what inspired you to go this route? Because like you said, co-working's become very popular especially in the tech startup world. So what got you thinking about doing this type of slant?
Sure. So a tiny bit about my background. I spent my 20s working for startups, small companies, mostly within the tech segment, and had the good fortune to be laid off 3 times by the age of 30. With 2 of the companies I worked for sold to larger companies, and one of them ran out of money. And so at age 30 was the time to build my own adventure, so to speak. And I started a marketing strategy consulting business that I had for 8 years called Perspective Marketing. And through that, working for myself, by myself, out of my home office, since it was convenient and cost effective, I missed having, over the course of time, I missed having that sense of community and camaraderie with coworkers, if you will. And I also was running a couple professional women's organizations throughout that period of 8 years when I had that business. And running a lot of events and workshops and different activities to support female entrepreneurship here in San Diego and Southern California. And those things really started to come together in 2010 when I saw just the beginning of this rise of co-working spaces, if you will, more open collaborative spaces versus kind of that old school executive suite Regis model, if you will.
Mm-hmm, right.
Yeah. And so with that, really started to study the market because of the growth of this independent workforce. Number one, it's been, significant over the last number of years. Right now, about 33% of the U.S. knowledge-based workforce is independent. So again, that's contractor, freelancer, entrepreneur, kind of in that category. And some are predicting that it's going to be 50% by 2020, just a few years away. Mm-hmm. And so this segment is growing rapidly of this independent workforce, number one. And number two, women, female entrepreneurs are growing at, some are saying twice the rate as male startups. So the reason I did this female focus concept was primarily to build a place that was catered to women, that was, attractive to women. You said in the beginning, Gina, when you heard that spa-like environment, it was like, wow, okay, this is different. And what we have created is highly different than anything else that's on the market.
I've checked out the Regises, and we've had other co-work spaces in our area that have been very techie and male dominated, and it just felt cold and isolated, honestly.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
And do you build in accelerator type programs, workshops? Is that correct?
Exactly. So at the core, Hera Hub offers daily, weekly, monthly events and workshops and access to business mentors, experts in their field that folks can sit down with one-on-one and get some mentoring and advice. And that's in the platform of the co-working space. But in addition, we have 2 nonprofit entities, one called Hera Labs, which is a formal business accelerator program, more what you would think of in the tech world, which is a 12-week program folks go through once a week, work through either the launch or the growth of their business. And those are funded through the Small Business Administration as well as local city funds. And then we also have another nonprofit organization called Hera Angels, which is really an educational arm as well to inspire more women to explore becoming angel investors and focusing that attention on female-founded female-focused businesses. Right now, only about 18% of angel investors are women, which is way better than venture capitalists. About 3 to 4% of VCs are women. And if you're going to, give women an opportunity to build scalable business and give them access to capital, having more women on the other side of the table, on the funding side, if you will, is a critical component of that. So we do an annual conference called the Hera Venture Summit coming up here in September in San Diego, and a number of things. And that's really being spearheaded by my angel investor, Sylvia Ma, Dr. Sylvia Ma, who is an angel investor herself and has been spearheading both Hera Labs and Hera Angels here on the Hera Hub platform for the last 3 years.
Does that, in essence, Hera Angels, is that teaching women how to be venture capitalists?
It's teaching them how to be angel investors. Okay. Yes. Yeah. And the distinction, there's a lot of different opinions on, what classifies somebody as an angel versus a VC. But my opinion and the way I like to articulate it is, and most people would agree, that angel investing is typically much earlier stage, what they would call seed stage. And it's typically that individual's own money, where a lot of times a VC firm or a VC fund is other people's money.
Very interesting. I didn't know that. Tell us a little bit about, I heard you in another interview explain where the word Hera comes from, and I thought that was really interesting to share.
Sure, yeah. So Hera, or Hera, if you're in Greece, is the Greek goddess of women. She was said to be very watchful and protected women and guarded them through every stage of their life. And so I thought it was fitting to name the business something that had meaning behind it, something that had history behind it, so to speak. And interestingly enough, if you're on our website or you're on any of our social channels or you watch any of our videos, you'll see often a reference to a peacock feather or a peacock itself. And the peacock was Hera's symbol because she was, again, very watchful over women throughout their life and was known to have these big, beautiful eyes like the eye of the peacock feather. So if you Google Hera, Greek goddess of women, you'll often see her pictured with a peacock. And quick, interesting story. I actually grew up with peacocks. I grew up on the central coast of California, and we had pet peacocks in our backyard. We had a few acres, and that was my first entrepreneurial venture, actually, was picking up the peacock feathers of Mr. Peabody, or male peacock, in the fall at age 8, and marching down to the corner store, JJ's Market, and selling them for $1 a piece.
Wow, that's a great full circle come around.
Exactly.
What a great story. What about some of your biggest challenges in being Hera or Hera Hub off the ground? I know that you've been a serial kind of entrepreneur and have started many businesses throughout your career. What have been some of the challenges in this, and what is your current plan for growth?
I would say the biggest challenge for us, for me, has been initially was the commercial real estate process. So I started looking for space and started this journey in 2010. And if you remember, Gina, we were just coming off of the quote unquote financial crisis, if you will.
I remember it very well.
Exactly. And so you had a lot of commercial real estate folks, brokers and owners that were a little gun shy of what had happened to the market. And so here I march in with this, a new concept at the time, co-working. I mean, at the time there were said to be about 500 co-working spaces across the entire United States. Now there's over 5,000, and the last, 5-6 years has grown exponentially, but at the time it was still quite a new concept. And then I march in saying that, it's going to be for women and it's brand new. I have no track record whatsoever. Right. I'm just, hey, here's a business plan and some financial projections. Lease me some space. It was difficult, to say the least. I went through 2 failed lease negotiations. It took me really in total about a year to secure that first space. And that's really one of the main reasons why, among many others, that we decided to expand. And I decided to license the business model because I had a very difficult time, not only with commercial real estate, but also figuring out the formula of how to make this work, how to make it a profitable business. Mm-hmm. There's no roadmap. And a lot of my background is also in education and infusing those educational resources into the brand and building that strong community. we've worked extremely hard over the last 6 years to build a model that suits the market, is profitable, is systemized, is as turnkey as possible. And so we're now licensing that business model. We've got now locations in Phoenix, Washington, D.C., just outside of Stockholm, Sweden, just launched last week. I've got the 3 locations in San Diego. We have active market assessments for the licensing process happening in Orange County, East Bay, San Francisco, Chicago, Oklahoma City, Toronto, Atlanta, and a few other cities that will be starting that process shortly too. So we just kind of hit the peak of the tipping point, I feel like, in regards to bringing this concept to cities, not only here in the US, but all over the world.
If somebody wanted to license, what's some advice that you would have for them? What skill sets do they need? How would they go about it? How would they get started if they'd want to license with you?
Sure. Yeah. So we're really looking for folks that are both leaders and connectors in their community already. People that, ideally have some roots in a particular city, and perhaps they're already involved in the community in some way, even within the female professional segment or entrepreneurial segment. Not mandatory, but ideal that somebody already has a little bit of experience with the market there and is passionate about supporting female entrepreneurship and building this platform for women to launch and grow their business. And so the process is they go through a 4-week market assessment where we really get to know them, they get to know us. We look at, the real estate market and financial projections and really get to understand, what's happening in that city. And then if that process goes well, then it goes to a vote with our existing space owners and operators, and then we award them the license. It's a 6-year agreement, so they've got 6 years to build that community up, and then obviously ongoing opportunity to continue to grow together. But it's really a great way for an individual to run their own business, be their own boss, so to speak, be an entrepreneur, but have significant support and roadmap and resources in doing that, not only initially, but ongoing.
Why did you choose the license route versus franchise?
So licensing allows for a little more flexibility in the brand interpretation. And because we've already gone international, you can imagine that some of the things that are happening, culturally in Sweden are different than the United States. And we're not a cookie cutter brand, if you will.
Yeah.
When people think about franchising, they think about, McDonald's or Subway, and we're not selling chicken nuggets. We're creating a community and a support platform for women to launch and grow their business. So licensing, the quick answer is just allows for a little more flexibility and localization.
That works really perfect with the next question because, this podcast is about culture building, and our company Pivot 10 focuses on helping companies build their cultures, fix their cultures, turn their cultures around, and really have strong cultures that are going to create profitable businesses, because when it's weak, it's not working so well. And it sounds like in your world, you're licensing in essence into different cultures, even if it's a different city. Every area, that's what's always kind of been for me. Franchises really focus on you will follow this set of rules exactly. Mm-hmm. And it's sometimes just not feasible, right? Because the difference between, I'm originally from Chicago and I was relocated to South Carolina, and it was like moving to a different country.
I bet.
The culture is so different. So could you talk a little bit about what your experience has been in culture, the culture of your own organization and the team that you have in place to help you grow, and culture in general for entrepreneurs and building their companies?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a journey. I'll say that for sure, Gina. I mean, I've learned a lot in regards to not only articulating what that culture is here in San Diego, not only with the team and the community, because our members are part of the family as well. And culture isn't just put some core values on the wall and call it a day. It has to be as well infused into absolutely everything that you do. And so we've worked hard to create that culture to the best that we can, and make sure that that's being articulated articulated in every way possible, but also being flexible to your point. I mean, we launched our first open location out of Southern California, was Washington, D.C. And as you can imagine and appreciate, the culture is different there than it is in, sunny Southern California.
Right.
So it definitely has been a learning experience. I'm not going to tell you I have the right formula for it by any means, but I work very hard on a daily basis to, listen and ask for feedback. And I think that's the benefit too of being a licensed model and more of a flat model is we have what we call our collective. In fact, I just got off our monthly collective call where everybody via Zoom signs in from Sweden to Southern California and has a conversation about business and how things are going and what do we need to do to support them in better ways. So those dialogues that are happening on a regular basis, not only via Zoom calls, but also via an online platform where we're dialoguing daily about some of these things. I think just the quick answer for me has just been communicate.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say makes for the most effective and pivotal leader? What qualities do you think it takes?
I think it's listening and lifting as much as possible. I don't have the answers to everything, and I never will, and I don't think I need to. I mean, that's why we have an incredible team. I believe I have an incredible team, not only our team, what we call our founding team, which is the marketing and the operations folks and the folks that are running the locations here in Southern California, but also beyond that, we've really selected licensees who are incredible women, again, leaders, connectors. And so my job, I feel like, is to listen as much as possible and lift as much as possible, help them get to the next level of growth.
What else I also love about what you said is that you said you don't have all the answers. And I've done now about 50 podcast interviews for this podcast. And most leaders, that's what they say the most, is that I don't have the answers to everything and I'm going to make mistakes. And I think that to me makes for a really strong leader because it means you're willing to learn, but you're also willing to seek out other people to help you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine somebody saying they have all the answers to anything. I mean, there's so much.
There are people out there who think that way. I've encountered them in business.
Interesting.
I'm like, you don't have all the answers.
Well, good luck with that.
I know. Where do you go for support and mentorship to help you along the way?
I've been lucky pretty early on in the business. I met, as I mentioned, Dr. Sylvia Ma, who again is running Hera Labs and Hera Angels and spearheading some of our educational nonprofit initiatives. She has been a great mentor and sounding board throughout this process. And then also I'm lucky that I have a built-in support system in my business. Here in San Diego alone, we have close to 350 members who are accomplished, amazing businesswomen in their own right, and I'm surrounded by them every day, all day. And so it's just such an incredible opportunity. I get pinged a lot to go into groups like Vistage and Entrepreneur Organization and some of these things, they're great groups, but I'm like, I have a mastermind group around me constantly. It's incredible.
Wow. What's on the horizon for you and Hera?
It really is continuing to focus on our growth, our expansion through that licensing model. I also wrote a book last year called Flight Club. Yeah, taking flight, so to speak, as an entrepreneur. It's really targeted. The book was written for, I guess I should say, the woman who is probably still in her corporate job, so to speak, and is perhaps longing to break out and launch her own business, but perhaps is a little afraid and maybe isn't even quite clear on what that business would look like. So the book is a bit of my journey as an entrepreneur and the bumps in the road along the path, and then stories of other women as they conceived their idea and launched their business. There's a number of practical exercises in the book to lead the reader through that opportunity to learn what should I do if I'm going to launch my own business, what's a fit with my strength and my passion and market opportunity. And then I went one step further. I actually taught entrepreneurship at the college level for 8 years and was a little bit frustrated and overwhelmed by the amount of information that's online about starting a business. And there was not a resource that I found that really broke it down step by step and simplified it for folks outside of the tech world. There's a lot of great lean business model, lean business canvas models out there, but those have all really been built for very scalable technology companies. And the market we primarily serve, Gina, is folks that are working for themselves by themselves. They're marketing consultants, they're solo practice attorneys, or finance professionals, or consultants in some way. They're not building the next Airbnb. And so some of these, steps and questions in these lean business, models are good to think about, but they still don't walk you through the practical steps of how to build the foundation of your business. So that's what I did. I built an online platform called steps2startup.com, and that resource is in the book and then drives the reader back to the website for obviously much more in-depth information and videos, an e-course, if you will, walking them through step by step. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. We'll include that website in our show notes as well.
Wonderful.
As well as a link to your book. I do have all that information, so we'll include all that in our show notes. We're nearing the end, and I have only one more question that I ask everybody at the end, which is our silly question, because it's just always interesting to see people's personalities through this. And that question is, what kind of animal are you in business and why?
Great question. So I'm going to have to go with the peacock.
I was wondering if you...
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the brand and everything that we talked about in relation to peacocks. I think the big thing, Gina, I think for women in particular, sadly, we're not always as confident as I believe we should be as women in business. And in some of the things that we're doing, women can tend to be a little bit timid around what they know and how to articulate what they're doing. We talk a lot at Hera Hub about not using minimizing words. I will always correct a woman who says, "Oh, I just have this little consulting business," right? Doesn't that just drive you crazy? Yes. And so the peacock being not only Hera's symbol and all of the things we talked about, guarding and protecting and watching over women through every stage of their life. But also sometimes I like to say to our community, you know what? Sometimes you got to fluff up those back feathers and, be a little bigger than you are, to be proud of, your colors, so to speak.
I love it.
Kind of step into your greatness. And so I'm going with peacock.
I love it. And I had a feeling I knew exactly what you were going to say about how we minimize. I was doing some recruiting for a client, and I was at a college job fair trying to recruit some college students. And they're the most raw, who needs, they're babies. They're just coming into the world. And these are a lot of freshmen, and everyone that would come to the table, and I'd try to connect and engage with them. And every girl would be like, well, I'd say, what kind of experience do you have? I know that, you're just coming out of high school, so I don't expect you to have a lot of experience. But what kind of experience do you have? Well, I just did some babysitting. I'm like, okay, we're going to coach you right now. I'm going to teach you what to say going forward.
Yeah.
We're going to remove the word just.
Exactly.
And you're going to proudly say, I've been a babysitter and I'm able to manage really difficult personalities because children are not easy.
Yeah.
And I agree with you 100%. We just we have this tendency to play a little bit smaller. I'm guilty of it. I have to remind myself all the time to puff up.
Yep, exactly. We have a phrase that's on every wall of every Hera Hub location. We have a lot of inspirational quotes around our locations, but one in particular is go big or go home. And, again, how can we inspire our community? That, going back to your question on leadership, how can we lift everybody up and inspire them to think a little bit bigger?
Yeah, I love that. Well, if people want to get a hold of you, connect with you, learn more about licensing with you, what are some of the best ways to do that?
So herahub.com, herahub.com, and click on the launch link that we have there if you want to explore the licensing process. And then personally, I am a big fan of Twitter. I love the brevity of it. So folks can find me at Felena Hanson on Twitter.
Great. And we're going to include that in our show notes. I want to thank you so much for being on our podcast today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Gina. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Well, stand by. I'm going to wrap up this show. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And thank you, Felena, for being on the show. You can find show notes for this episode, including contact information for Felena on our website at thepivotalleader.com. The Pivotal Leader is a production of Pivot 10 Results, a strategy and training company that helps businesses shift from people problems to performance results. Remember, you can find our podcast on iTunes. And if you're an iTunes subscriber, please leave a rating or review. Don't forget to email me your questions about employee engagement and customer acquisition at gina@pivot10.com, and we will answer those in upcoming episodes. And until next time, if you're feeling stuck in your business, it's probably time to pivot. You've been listening to The Pivotal Leader. To learn more about how to shift your culture and pivot to success, visit pivot10results.com. That's pivot10results.com.